like conditions later on. And in the meantime, the Turks and Saudis and Iranians would all have intervened on the side of their favorite clients or to establish their own interests. And there would have been a vortex, a black hole, which would have drawn in neighboring countries. The intervention came far too late in my point of view. The one point of convergence we've come up with this evening is everything would have been better in 1991. The militia types were weak then. Iran was quite weak because of the outcome of the recovery from the war. There was no one who could really have stopped. There were 500,000 American soldiers, furthermore coalition soldiers, within range of Baghdad. That's, the argument for me begins with those who say that the decision to confirm Saddam that year was wrong. And neoconservatism, I should have put this in my answer to Stacy on that, begins as the faction that says that was a terrible mistake. That's the mistake we're paying for, not the attempt to rectify it in 2003. Do hope I make myself plain.
If I could just address the first question. I think that it's just a mistake to try to analyze these things in terms of very global theories when one really doesn't know why. You mentioned banks. I mean, I don't know why I would think that, Chase Manhattan or Citibank would be for or against this adventure or not. This is, we have to get out of that kind of, that way of talking about this thing. I think that the big globalization, which kind of comes to an end with this period of war interventionism, was fine for American capital, and this period actually you see that other people, the Chinese, the Indians, are doing rather well. Latin America has become much more independent of American influence in this period. So the American empire or American capital as such, and I know these things are not always teleological, sometimes you intend to do something and it works out badly, but I think they're not doing very well by the adventure. And I would not look for the causes in that particular area. I actually think that the logic of the American presidency, which Woodrow Wilson already discovered in constitutional government, namely to strengthen a weak political position by external adventure, is a better candidate in this case, a political logic, than this economic logic which you're thinking about. How did they screw it up? It's very hard to first of all estimate what the window of opportunity for doing it well was, assuming that you had Iraqi nationalism arrayed against you from the outset. But I think there is a window of opportunity. That window of opportunity assumes internationalization, assumes keeping the Iraqi state intact, assumes inclusive process of bargaining. Mr. Khalilzad, who's the first talented American viceroy there, he's an ambassador, but jokingly I'm calling him viceroy. I hope you don't think that that's what I think he is officially. He actually now promotes these kinds of things, but much, much too late. In fact, I hate to praise Republicans, but Ms. Rice is a much more talented and much stronger Secretary of State than Mr. Powell was. And probably because of discrediting of the first phase of this operation, she has now taken charge of some of what is going on, And note that even now, and I'll just end with this, what's the point of talking too much, even now she's not fully in charge. Khalilzad, who's Rice's man now, I think there's no question about that, announced that they're going to negotiate with Iran over Iraqi issues. This is extremely interesting because initially it was announced that they will talk about regional matters and all kinds of things, and I think Rice and Khalilzad had in mind linking up various issues having to do with also Iran-American relations. It didn't have to be just Iran in Iraq and how to minimize a negative role for Iran among the militia and all the rest. Then I'm listening to a news conference held by Rumsfeld, and he's asked about this, and Rumsfeld says, "Oh, I'm not sure if that is even going to happen," and he's throwing, a kind of negative light on it. And I said, "No, this guy just doesn't like it. It's obvious." And 3 days from that, then it is quashed. It's not happening. The time isn't propitious. So the inner battle, in fact, is again won on this particular issue by the other side. So, in fact, two things one can say about it. Either one of the reasons why the American policy goes wrong is because it's two-headed, and there is constantly a battle between State Department and Pentagon forces, which of course also means the CIA on the State Department side and the Pentagon forces, which has its own intelligence agencies and the rest. Either it is two-headed, and that's why it is going wrong, or because ultimately the Pentagon team is still stronger with respect to the president through Cheney, and that's why it goes wrong. Those are two hypotheses. But I think that you can see this certainly as one factor, because when there's a very talented ambassador on the spot who is in fact finally trying to arrange an inclusive process which has a little bit of a chance, and I see this window, my window is by now extremely small, but still it is perhaps there, and they're still undercutting him in some fundamental ways. And that's what is going on. I mean, this is not a government that is actually operating through any kind of coherent leadership. What? It's a weak president who really will listen to one day and the other day. He's really a very poor leader. And with Powell, he would just listen to the Pentagon side basically and marginalize the State Department side. They had all kinds of plans, about 30 huge books about what to do in Iraq, including policing and all. They were just disregarded. But now he has a talented Secretary of State. I mean, she's very good, you know, and she handles the Europeans, for example, in a really talented way. I mean, you know, she has contrary to what people might have expected, she has, and my expectations, and in fact, I'm even against this, she has won the French and the Germans for Americans' Iran policy, at least for the moment. Now, how long it lasts, we don't know, but she is really doing a very talented job also in terms of that. I'm not for it, but I grudgingly have to admit that there's talent there. So now the policy has become really double-headed because there are the people on one side, there are people on the other side, and they're undercutting each other. Well, no wonder that Iraq is a mess because in fact, one side is in fact supporting the Shia, and the other side is now almost on the verge of having rebalanced things and supporting the Sunni insurrectionists, or at least a part of the Sunni insurrection through their political wing. Now that's strange when these people are shooting at each other and killing each other every day.
Yeah, I'm calling the street. So.
I'm going to collect a couple.